They don't want you focused. They want you scattered, pulled in every direction at once, drained by noise, buried under notifications, addicted to reactions that don't matter. They want you scrolling without thinking, chasing validation like it's oxygen, giving your power away one tap at a time. Because a man who controls his focus becomes dangerous quietly, strategically, unmistakably dangerous. Not through rage, not through noise, but through precision. A focused man doesn't need to shout. He moves in silence, and that silence unsettles people more than any threat ever could. Machiavelli understood something modern men have forgotten. Power doesn't start in your hands, it starts in your mind. It begins the moment you decide what deserves your attention and what no longer does. The moment you stop feeding every distraction that calls your name. The moment you stop letting every opinion shape you. Because the more you care about being perceived correctly, the more you're controlled by the ones doing the perceiving. The more you chase opinions, the more you chase chains. But the second you redirect all that energy inward toward your mission, your development, your war, the dynamic flips. You stop orbiting the world, and suddenly the world starts orbiting you. That shift isn't poetic. It's psychological warfare. Every argument you let pull you in. Every trend you get manipulated by. Every distraction you chase. Each one is a small hole in your armor. A slow leak in your power. And if you're not careful, one day you wake up and realize you're no longer a man with a path. You're just noise in someone else's feed. The world doesn't silence men with force anymore. It silences them with distraction. With endless choices, none of which matter. With stimulation that drains focus, but never builds strength. That's why you must reclaim your attention, not with drama, not with anger, but with deliberate strategy. Pull your energy back the way a warrior draws a sword. Let them talk. Let them over-explain. Let them perform for attention. You observe. You plan. You move only when it counts. Focus isn't about isolating yourself for no reason. It's about building dominance without being dragged into the noise. It's the mental fortress you construct brick by brick, silently, consistently, until you become immune to manipulation. If you've finally decided to stop bleeding your time into the hands of fools, understand this. Your silence is not absence. Your silence is construction. It's the empire rising behind the scenes, the one people will swear they always believed in once it's complete. Because today, the greatest enemy of your potential isn't a sword or a rival. It's a screen. It's the quiet, constant pull of trivial things designed to fracture your mind into 1,000 unimportant pieces. They don't need to defeat you. They only need you distracted. A man who scrolls without direction never builds anything that lasts. Machiavelli warned that control begins in the mind. And today, control doesn't require chains, it requires addiction. Algorithms. Envy. Dopamine loops that keep you obedient without ever realizing you've surrendered. Every time you check your phone out of boredom, you aren't passing time, you're surrendering it. Every needless click, every meaningless swipe, every dive into someone else's drama cracks the structure inside your mind. Your attention is the mortar of your mental fortress. Your thoughts are the bricks. Lose either, and the whole thing collapses. The world wants your focus cheap. Your job is to make it expensive. Guard it like gold. Protect it like a throne. Cut away anything that drains you, even if it once entertained you, even if it once felt like connection. Because real power doesn't show off. It concentrates. The man who protects his attention builds a future no one can sabotage. And yes, some people will hate the new you. They'll say you've changed, that you've become cold, distant. But what they really mean is, You're no longer available for my chaos. Good. Let them be uncomfortable. A focused man is not controllable. A silent man is not readable. And a man who isn't readable becomes someone others fear to underestimate. Machiavelli valued solitude for this exact reason. He knew kings are forged away from applause, not in crowds, not in noise, but in the quiet rooms where a man confronts himself and strengthens what no one else can see. The world celebrates the man who's everywhere, but it fears the man who disappears and returns 10 times sharper. You're not avoiding people, you're avoiding pollution. You're not running from connection, you're cutting the chains of dependency. Every second spent explaining yourself is a second wasted. Let them guess. Let them question. Let them invent their own stories. Because when you stop managing their perceptions, you finally start building your power. Strategic isolation is not retreat, it's resurrection. While they post their lives, you build yours. While they scream for attention, you become the kind of man who commands it by doing nothing at all. That urge you sometimes feel the pull to vanish, to go quiet, to remove yourself from the noise, that isn't weakness. That's transformation calling your name. Because when you disappear long enough to evolve, you don't come back recognizable. You come back inevitable. And that inevitability, people feel it before they see it. Power doesn't shout. It watches. It calculates. Weak minds react instantly emotionally, predictably, and that predictability is exactly what costs them everything. One reaction at the wrong moment can expose you, can hand your enemy a map of your weaknesses, can make you readable, and a readable man is a vulnerable man. Machiavelli wrote that in the old world you could judge a ruler's quality by the men around him. But today, you judge a man by how he behaves in chaos, whether he reacts or remains still. When they can't read you, they fear you. When they can't provoke you, they lose all leverage. Your silence confuses them. Your calm becomes a threat. Your refusal to react destabilizes their entire strategy, because people don't know how to fight what they can't predict. So you must train yourself to become the man who doesn't flinch, doesn't argue, doesn't explain. The man who lets others burn in their own frustration while he stands unmoved. Your emotions? They must become soldiers, disciplined, obedient, loyal to the long game. No reaction unless it serves your strategy. No outburst unless it gives you leverage. No explanation unless it cements your position. Everything else stays inside. Everything else becomes fuel. Most men will never reach this level because they're addicted to performance, addicted to being understood, to proving themselves, to placing their emotions on display like an open book. But the man who chooses silence over validation becomes unreadable, and unreadable men are dangerous. If someone has ever tried to bait you into defending your peace, remember this: your strength is not in your rebuttal, it's in your restraint. Let them speak. You stay silent. Let them push. You stay rooted. Let them scream. You think, calculate, and wait, because the less they know, the more they fear. In every room there are two kinds of men: the one who performs and the one who watches. The performer feeds his ego. The watcher builds leverage. Guess who leaves with control? It's never the loud one. It's the one whose silence does the talking for him. Self-focus is leverage. Every hour you spend mastering your mind, disciplining your habits, sharpening your value, you are not just improving. You are storing potential, weaponized potential. You aren't becoming better. You're becoming inevitable. And inevitability is far more intimidating than effort. Machiavelli never obsessed over fairness, he obsessed over advantage. Not applause, not public approval. Control. And the raw truth is this: people only respect what they fear losing. So when you become the man they cannot manipulate, cannot provoke, cannot lure into emotional reactions, you become irreplaceable, not because you asked to be, but because you became something too sharp, too grounded, too intentional to replace. You want influence? Disappear. Detach from the audience. Let them forget your name. Let them mock your absence. Then come back months later, 10 steps ahead, with results so undeniable that the world goes quiet when you enter a room. They won't recognize you, but they'll remember your silence. They'll remember how you left. And now, they'll talk less, question less, watch more. Power is earned in solitude and revealed in silence. This isn't about being better than others. It's about becoming so refined, so composed, so focused that others cannot compete even if they try. They chase relevance. You build legacy. They crave attention. You cultivate gravity. They perform. You dominate quietly because everything you do carries weight. You don't argue. You don't fight for recognition. You don't plead to be understood. Your presence shifts the temperature of the room. Your silence becomes pressure. Your attention becomes scarce and therefore priceless. Once you learn to rule yourself, you stop seeking permission from the world. You don't need applause to validate your worth because your discipline already carved it into your identity. Most people think they're chasing power, but they're really chasing attention. They want to be seen, praised, adored. But attention is not power. Attention is a leash, one that tightens quietly the more you depend on it. If your self-worth comes from noise, your downfall will come from silence. The world lifts you up with applause and destroys you with indifference. That's dependency, not power. Machiavelli would never have played that game. He didn't ask for recognition. He built control. And that starts with one thing. Stop letting others define you. Stop letting their reactions dictate your moves. Stop letting the world's noise replace your inner command. Because the more you depend on others to validate your identity, the more fragile that identity becomes. People today walk around programmed, wired to rise and fall with every like, every comment, every stare from a stranger. One insult destroys their confidence. One moment of silence makes them panic. That's not identity. That's dependency wearing a mask. And if someone can program your emotions, they can break you without ever lifting a finger. But there is another path. It's darker. It's lonelier. And it leads to something almost no man will ever touch. Real power. You must kill your craving for attention. Starve it. Replace it with a cold obsession for results. Measure your worth by execution, not expression by discipline, not display. When you do something difficult, don't announce it. Let it grow inside you like a storm. Let it transform you quietly. Let the world find out only when the evidence is undeniable. When you win, don't chase praise. Let the room feel your presence shift. Let your results speak. Let your silence roar. Because true power isn't in being seen. It's in being undeniable. The man who craves attention performs. The man who builds in silence becomes a force. He becomes unreadable, unmovable, untouchable. There will come a time when you pull back into yourself, when your old circle starts whispering that you've changed, that you're arrogant, disconnected, maybe even dangerous. Let them. Their discomfort is the price of your evolution. Their misunderstanding is the tax you pay for no longer belonging to the world they cling to. Because the sovereign man does not chase applause. He does not argue his worth. He does not justify his silence. He knows the less they understand, the more they fear. You must become the ghost in their system felt, not seen. Respected, not accessed. present, but only when you choose. Your calm will disturb them. Your stillness will disarm them. Your silence will expose them. Because stillness in a world that reacts to everything, that's revolution. Most men want the trophy before they fight the battle. They want recognition before they build discipline. They want to be followed before they've earned the right to lead. But that's delusion. And delusion destroys kings before life ever has a chance to. You must disconnect from that fantasy. You must replace the hunger for praise with the hunger for precision. Disappear, not out of fear, out of strategy. Let your mind grow in the dark. Let your discipline sharpen behind closed doors. Let your work speak for you long before you ever speak for yourself. Because when your validation comes from within, the world loses the ability to hurt you. And when you want nothing from them, they suddenly need everything from you. That's the power shift. That's the moment you stop reacting and start ruling. Test yourself. Go silent for a week. Watch who checks in. Watch who evaporates. Watch who only valued you when you were available. Then stretch that silence. 2 weeks, a month. In that silence, something inside you will begin to sharpen. Your mind becomes clearer. Your emotions steadier. Your decisions more surgical. The world fears the man who moves like this. The man who vanishes to build and returns without asking permission. The man who stops trying to belong and begins shaping his own arena. That man is a threat. Not because he's loud, not because he's aggressive, but because he is precise. You must kill the impulse to overshare, to announce, to explain, to prove. Plans are not for the public. Progress is not for display. Your mission is not a group discussion. Machiavelli warned that modern men confuse presence with power, but presence without progress is empty, meaningless, a performance. Power comes from discipline, from the hours no one claps for, from the sacrifices no one sees, from the routines you repeat until they become your identity. Discipline is the throne, but there is a deeper throne beneath it, emotional detachment, the ability to feel without reacting, to notice without responding, to see through manipulation without needing to confront it. The detached man is dangerous because nothing exposes him, nothing binds him, nothing triggers him. He becomes unreadable, he becomes unpredictable, he becomes untouchable. Because the moment the world knows what moves you, the world knows how to move you. So you learn to separate feeling from action, observation from reaction, emotion from choice. You witness your anger without becoming it. You hear the insult without inhaling it. You stand in the storm without letting it touch your center. In the hands of a focused man, silence becomes a weapon more devastating than rage, more strategic than defense. Machiavelli knew fear obeys what love manipulates, and stillness creates fear. Stillness creates authority. That's why you must stop chasing connection that costs you control. Stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Stop arguing with fools who want your reaction more than your truth. Your calm is dominance. Your restraint is authority. Your silence is command. Most men will never experience this power because they can't stop leaking emotion. They can't stop reacting. They can't stop chasing clarity from people who don't respect them. But not you, not anymore. You are becoming something else, someone else. Someone they cannot predict, cannot provoke, and cannot access at will. Detachment is not the absence of emotion. It's the mastery of it. It's choosing when to act, when to hold, and when to let silence speak for you. Because silence, when wielded with intention, becomes the blade no one sees until it's too late. Most men spend their entire lives reacting, snapping at insults, chasing closure, defending their name, trying to correct how others see them. But a Machiavellian mind knows better. He knows that every reaction is information. Every emotional leak is a message sent to the wrong people, and once they read you, they own you. So you learn the art of stillness. Stillness is not passivity. Stillness is power held in reserve. It's the man who stands in chaos and shows no response. It's the man whose expression reveals nothing. It's the man who refuses to be baited, even when provoked. When others lose composure, he tightens his grip on his center. When others scream, he studies. When others push, he becomes immovable. This is how you rise from being a participant in the game to becoming the one who defines it. Because people don't fear anger. They fear unpredictability. They fear unreadability. They fear the man who cannot be emotionally manipulated. And when you detach from the need to explain, to justify, to fix every misunderstanding, you break the chains that tied you to the expectations of others. Your peace becomes your own again. Your worth stops being negotiated. Your identity stops being voted on. And something extraordinary starts to happen. You begin to see people with clarity, not who they pretend to be, not who they say they are, but who they reveal themselves to be in your silence. Your detachment becomes a spotlight. It exposes motives. It reveals insecurities. It unmasks manipulators. You start noticing the flattery that hides manipulation, the compliments that carry agenda, the affection that is really dependency. You see the emptiness behind the pretenders and the unpredictability behind those who once seemed stable. Your silence forces them to show their real shape. And most men never reach this level because they're addicted to emotional comfort, especially from the people who destroy them. They want closure from liars, validation from strangers, loyalty from users, love from betrayers. But the man who chooses detachment chooses clarity. He stops begging for truth and starts observing behavior. He stops demanding loyalty and starts measuring patterns. He stops asking for respect and starts enforcing boundaries. He becomes sovereign. A sovereign man doesn't chase peace. He becomes peace. He doesn't ask for respect. He embodies it. He doesn't wait for applause. He outgrows the audience entirely. This is why silence becomes so powerful, not because it hides you, but because it frees you. When you refuse to react, the game flips. Suddenly, they don't know where you stand. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know how to trigger you. Their strategies collapse. Their manipulation dissolves. Their confidence shatters under the weight of uncertainty. Because manipulators hate silence. They cannot control it. They cannot predict it. They cannot decode it. Your silence becomes a mirror, and what they see in that mirror terrifies them. Their own dependence on your reactions. This is psychological warfare. And you win without lifting a finger. Let them talk. Let them reach. Let them project. Let them crumble under the pressure of your stillness. You conserve energy while they exhaust theirs. You stay grounded while they spiral. You rise while they reveal their weaknesses. He who speaks first exposes himself. He who reacts loses the frame. But he who holds his silence owns the moment. And this is where discipline becomes destiny. A man without discipline is a man carried by the winds of emotion. But a man who masters his inner state becomes immovable. His mornings become structured. His evenings become intentional. His routines become a fortress around his power. Suddenly, you're not waiting for motivation. You're moving because the code you live by leaves no room for excuses. Your discipline sharpens you in the dark. It builds the version of you the world will one day fear to underestimate. People call it strict. People call it intense. People call you cold. But what they're really seeing is a man who no longer negotiates with himself. A man who has replaced impulse with intention. A man who lives from structure instead of emotion. When you become this kind of man, your time stops being something you manage. It becomes something you rule. Most people live by reaction. They wake up when they feel like it, move when pushed, think when forced, and follow whatever grabs their attention. But you start designing your life like a kingdom. Every hour accounted for, every decision weighed, every move backed by purpose. Your hours stop slipping away. Your energy stops bleeding out. Your progress stops stalling. And the world starts to notice. They don't say it out loud at first. They whisper it. They observe it. They feel it. Something about you has changed. Your posture, your expression, your presence. You don't need recognition. You radiate inevitability. But discipline alone isn't enough. There is a deeper mastery, the one most men never achieve. Emotional self-governance. When someone insults you, you don't flinch. When someone pushes, you don't move. When someone tries to get a rise out of you, you remain still. This is not numbness. This is strategy. Because if they can trigger you, they can control you. If they know your buttons, they know your weaknesses. If they can push you into reaction, they can pull you out of power. But once you master the art of emotional neutrality, you become unreadable. And unreadable means untouchable. This is the birth of the sovereign man. A sovereign man doesn't explain himself. He doesn't defend himself. He doesn't chase, justify, or entertain nonsense. He speaks only when it serves him. He disappears when it strengthens him. He returns only when the terrain favors his move. His life is no longer shaped by noise. It's shaped by design. His silence is no longer absence. It's strategy. His presence is no longer random. It's precise. This is the man you are becoming. Purposeful, controlled, calculating, dangerous in the most disciplined sense of the word. There comes a moment in every man's evolution when silence is no longer just a tool. It becomes identity. It becomes the environment you operate in, the air your power breathes, the language only the focused can understand. Silence stops being absence. It becomes sovereignty. And as you rise deeper into this new version of yourself, you begin to recognize something most men never see. Your solitude is not the enemy. It's the forge. Most men fear being alone because they've never met themselves without noise. They panic in quiet rooms. They crumble when no one is watching. They lose their sense of worth the moment attention disappears. But not you. Not anymore. You start to see solitude for what it truly is. The purification of the mind. The stripping away of illusions, the burning off of the weaker identities you once carried. In the silence, the truth surfaces. Who you are, who you're not, and who you must become. It hurts at first. There is an ache in the withdrawal, a heaviness that feels like loss. But it's not the loss of people. It's the loss of the version of you that relied on them. You're not suffering from loneliness. You're suffering from detox. Every yes you gave to keep the peace. Every time you explained yourself to be understood. Every moment you chose approval over authenticity. All of that built a version of you that was obedient to the world's expectations. And now that version is dying. Machiavelli would call this a strategic death. The necessary destruction of a self that was never meant to lead. Because until that obedient version of you dies, the sovereign one can't emerge. So you let it burn. You let it ache. You let the silence strip you down to the bone. And in that raw emptiness, something powerful rises. Clarity. You start seeing the patterns you once ignored. You start recognizing the emotional drains you once tolerated. You start noticing who benefits from your lack of boundaries, who thrives when you diminish yourself, who pulls from you without ever giving back. The silence reveals everything. And then, slowly, a stronger identity begins to form. A man who owns his time. A man who governs his emotions. A man who chooses his presence like a weapon. A man who speaks only when necessary. A man who moves with intention rather than impulse. This is the sovereign man. He is not cruel. He is not heartless. He is not cold out of spite. He is cold because warmth must be earned. He is silent because not everyone deserves access. He is distant because his focus is sacred. And as you step deeper into this identity, something else happens. Your presence changes. People feel it before you speak. Your silence carries weight. Your absence creates curiosity. Your return shifts the atmosphere of a room. You no longer need to prove your worth. Your discipline proves it. Your boundaries prove it. Your results prove it. And the world responds accordingly. Those who could once manipulate you can no longer reach you. Those who pulled you into drama can no longer move you. Those who fed on your emotional reactions starve in your stillness, because your silence is now a mirror, and people cannot stand to face themselves without your distraction. Some will call you arrogant, some will call you distant, some will say you've changed. They're right. You have changed, and you were supposed to. The man who never evolves becomes a servant to his past. You're building a throne from yours. Your time is yours. Your mind is yours. Your energy is yours. Your presence is a privilege now, never again a default expectation. This shift affects everything. You stop explaining yourself, because explanations invite negotiation, and sovereign men don't negotiate their boundaries. You stop reacting, because reactions are currency manipulators love to collect. You stop chasing clarity from others, because their confusion is none of your concern. You stop apologizing for distance, because distance is how you protect your inner kingdom. And once you stop justifying your decisions, you reclaim something sacred, authority over your own life. This is when the world truly starts to feel your transformation. Not because you announce it, but because your presence operates differently. You become a man who moves quietly, but whose movement carries force. A man who speaks rarely, but whose words land with precision. A man who disappears strategically and reappears only with purpose. This is not performance. This is not ego. This is sovereignty. And sovereignty is not granted, it is taken. It is built. It is enforced. It is lived. Your new life will not begin with applause. It will begin with silence, with choices made in private, with boundaries set unapologetically, with discipline repeated relentlessly. And in time, the world shifts around you. People who could once reach you easily must now earn the right to stand in your presence. People who took your availability for granted now feel the cost of your absence. People who dismissed your quiet strength now adjust themselves when you enter the room, because you have become something rare, a man who needs nothing from the world and therefore cannot be owned by it, a man who controls his thoughts, his emotions, his time, his exposure, his silence, a man who has mastered himself so thoroughly that no one else can shape him. This is the final transformation. The moment you stop being reactive and begin being inevitable. You no longer move for validation. You move with intention. You no longer live to be understood. You live to be effective. You no longer bend to chaos. You bend the world by the weight of your presence. You have walked from distraction to discipline, from noise to stillness, from approval-seeking to sovereignty. And now you stand on the other side, unreadable, unshakable, untouchable. You are no longer part of the chaos. You are the silence they can't decode, the presence they can't ignore, the force they never saw coming. This is who you've become. Not loud, not desperate, not chasing, but focused, forged, refined. A man who needs nothing, a man who controls everything, a man who moves like a ghost and builds like a king. This is the end of who you were, and the beginning of who you were always meant to be.